Focusing is a massive subject. In this video we're going to zoom in on how to set up your camera to focus correctly every time for super sharp landscape photographs. If you want to find out more about getting razor sharp photographs, you may want to check this video and the links in the description. It's fantastic to be out again this morning. You can probably tell the sunlight sort of pouring down on my face. Ruby's here, she's whining a bit in the background. But it's been absolutely great to get out. Although I should have been out a bit earlier. The sun shines lovely, the sky's lovely, and I'm getting some nice photographs. Okay, so back to today's subject. I often get asked, how do you get a sharp photograph? How do you take sharp pictures? Why do your pictures always look pin sharp? Well, to be honest, it's such a huge subject. I've decided to break it up into a few different parts. And if you watch the video which I did a few weeks ago, I'll put a link to it in the description. I just talked about the subject of sharp, and I covered a lot of different things in it. In today's video in particular, I just want to talk about how you set your camera up to get sharp pictures. Because I think that's the first part, is if you understand your camera, what it's doing, and set it up to give you the best quality images that you can, you're halfway there. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And as normal, I'm outside in the landscape itself, putting all these tips to good use and explaining them to you as I carry out the photography. And at the end, I'm going to bring all of these points together and show you the exact method that I use to get pin sharp seascapes and landscapes every single time without fail. So the camera's set up and I've already decided on my subject. And the next thing we need to do is really think about the composition and the focusing. I've done lots of other videos on composition, so today it's just focusing that we need to think about. Now, one of the things we are going to need to consider is where to actually focus. And if you want to get that video when it comes out later on, then you need to subscribe now, hit the bell icon so you get the notification. Because today we're just going to concentrate on how we set the camera up. So the first thing we need to think about when we're talking about focusing modes is really to consider the subject that we're trying to capture, because that's going to determine how we set the camera up. Now, this channel is dedicated to landscape photography, so the modes which I'm going to set up and use today are all dedicated to that, to landscape photography. So we can set the camera up so that it either takes one shot, i.e. it'll focus on one point. When that point's in focus, we continue to press the shutter button down and it takes the picture. We can also set it up on something called AI focus or AI servo. Both of these are tracking modes. They may be called something different on your camera, but on Canon's it's AI servo and AI focus. I'm not going to go into them in detail, but basically what they do is they track moving subjects. Now, the landscape's not going anywhere. So let's set the camera back up on one shot focus. So now we know that it's going to focus on one point, and when that's sharp, we can take the picture. The next thing we need to consider when we're looking at landscape photography is also where we want to focus. And like I said, I'm going to put that actually up in a future video, but how we select it in the camera is by moving that focus point around. Now, we can either select a single focus point, or we can select an area, a wide area, or an expanded area. Once again, the landscape's not going anywhere, and we really want to be quite precise and deliberate in our focusing with our landscape photography. We may want to decide that our most important point is a rock, a tree, the horizon, whatever it may be, depending on your photograph. So in this case, the best system to use is single point. So once again, let's set that up on the back of the camera. So on the Canon, it's really quite easy. You can just go into menu, and then there's a quick menu button on the back of it called a Q mode. And there's various different ways to get there, but we can basically set our multi-function one point. There we go. And that is just setting it on single point focus. Job done. Okay, so let's take this photograph, shall we? Single point, spot focus, there we go. Focused on that zone. 2-second timer on. That's it. photograph taken, that's all we need to do. So let's get away, let's get on to the next location. We've got lots of things to cover. I like layers in photographs. They create a sense of depth. Here I've focused on the rocks in the fore and midground. The background becomes increasingly soft and hazy in the early morning light. Not everything in your photograph has to be sharp. Leave a little room for creativity. Well, I hope you can hear me okay. I don't think I thought this out very well when I decided to come here. Obviously with the waterfalls behind me, it's really noisy, but it is a beautiful spot. It's one of the most photographed spots on Dartmoor, to be honest, and I think most people who would call themselves Dartmoor photographers strive to come here at some point. For that very reason, I don't come here too often because there are lots of photographs of it. But it's been a while since I've been here, and it's always worth revisiting a location again because you do see different things every time you come. And I have seen a photograph I want to take in a minute, but before we do that, I want to talk to you about manual focusing. Now, with all the modern cameras that we've got, you might well ask, why on earth would you even consider using manual focusing? Why bother? We've got pin sharp cameras which can deliver fantastic results. They're packed with technology. Why go back to manual? Well, one, there's a deep sense of personal satisfaction when you control everything on the camera yourself and get it right. But also, actually, under some certain situations, this being one of them, it can actually be easier. If you're in a situation which is a bit shady and a bit of low light, sometimes autofocus can't quite pick up what it wants to. Also, if you're in a situation where it's a bit dark and a bit dimpsy sometimes, the autofocus can search. So you go to take a photograph, get everything composed, and when you actually go to take it, the camera starts searching for the focus point again. So that can cause you some issues. So this is a good time to change over to and try using manual focus. So I'm going to get the camera out, I'm going to set up a photograph, and then I'm going to show you how to set the camera up to use it for manual focus. Coming up right towards the end of this video though, I have seen the bonus picture I'm going to take. And that's when I'm going to pull all the elements together that we've discussed this morning and put everything into one complete package, which shows you the method that I use to do my focusing. Right, I'm going to get the camera set up. There's not a lot of room, so as soon as I'm ready to show you that, I'll be back with you guys. So one of the problems that you get with using manual focus is if you wear these. If you wear these, looking through the viewfinder can sometimes be a little bit tricky, especially like mine because I use varifocals. So let's lose these for now. I'm forever putting glasses down and risking losing them, so we're going to put them in that pocket safely. So basically on the top of your camera you have got a adjustment, it's called your diopter adjustment, and you can adjust it so that when you look through the viewfinder and focus, what you're getting is a sharp picture. Now the way that I do that is, excuse me, I'm going to have to stand in front of you for a minute. The way that I do that is I focus using autofocus, then I adjust the diopter adjustment, and then I know when I take my picture, my image is going to be sharp if I manual focus using the viewfinder. So let's just set that up and do that now. So that's the camera manual focused, and then all I have to do now is use the diopter adjustment to dial in what I think is spot on focus. So when I focus now using the manual focusing through the viewfinder, I'm going to get a good picture. In practice, because I'm doing landscapes a lot, if I can use the live view, I will. And I'm going to show you now the way that I use manual focus. So here we are looking at the back of the camera. So first of all, let's put it into the thingy view. And then I'm going to adjust the exposure, but it's got exposure simulation on so you can see exactly what we're doing. Now with the camera switched into manual focus now, I've got complete control over what I focus and zoom in on. Now, as you can see, it goes from being relatively sharp to really blurred. But the problem is actually knowing exactly what bit is in sharp and what bit isn't. Now, on a lot of digital SLR cameras and mirrorless cameras, they've got a feature when you can zoom in on the back of the viewfinder. So my camera, I can do it on the touch screen as well. So that's 5 times, that's 10 times magnification. I can then move about if I want to and pick the exact spot that I want to focus on. So for example, if I wanted to use that rock in this scene to split picture on, it's about 2/3 into the frame. All I have to do then is adjust my focus for that rock. And then when we've got that in focus, we can zoom back out and we can take the picture exactly where it is. Now, doing it that way then means now that I can adjust exposure, I can adjust composition slightly, and the actual focus settings won't change. So it gives me a lot more freedom now. There's that photograph taken. It gives me a lot more freedom to move about and change things how I want to do it. And that's one reason why you're going to want to use manual focus in your landscape photography. It's time for Ruby and me to have a little bit of breakfast and a break, but straight after that, and after showing you this image that I've just taken, I'm going to show you the bonus of today, which is really going to be combining manual focus, live view, and some of the little trick which landscape photographers don't normally use to get pin sharp focus every time. Some landscape photographs deserve front to back sharpness to bring out the detail throughout the scene. It's not easy to take original photographs of popular locations. I've kept it simple using the small waterfall in the foreground to point up and at the Twin Falls in the background. Well, setting up this composition was an absolute nightmare. As you can see from the environment, most of what I'm walking through is water, so my feet are wet, my legs are wet, my bum's getting wet for where I'm crouched down, and it just wasn't easy, to be honest with you. But I think it is going to be a great picture. Now, I've kind of decided on using a square format, and you're just going to have to go along with what I'm saying at the moment, and I'll show you the full image in a minute. But basically, I want to talk about how I'm going to focus on this. So I'm going to go into live view again. Oh, excuse me, I might keep falling in and out of frames. I'm perching on a rock. So basically, the camera is set up at the moment for me in autofocus. Everything else is in manual. And I'm using something called back button focusing. Now here's the key point. This is the bonus bit. You can set up most SLR cameras, whether it's a mirrorless camera or a digital SLR, to use a button on the back to focus your camera. The advantage of that is when you move your focusing point about, like we did with manual focusing, to pick the point that we wanted, once you use back button focusing to focus on it, that focus is then locked. So why is that good? It combines all the technical excellence within the camera of autofocus with the flexibility of manual focus. So now that the focus is locked on that point using the back button focus, I can just take a picture and I know that the focus point isn't going to shift when I use the front shutter release or if I use the cable release. The other thing that you can do with this, equally the same as when you manual focus, is use your zoom in function. So say I wanted to zoom right in and concentrate down on this rock down here in the foreground. We zoom in to ×5 or ×10. We use the focus. Do you see how that snaps into focus? We can then take our picture knowing that we focused exactly on that point in the frame. So that's the final tip. That's the way that I use it. Okay, so let's just recap on all the settings that I'm using. So I get pin sharp shots from my camera every time by using the following settings. I use a single focus point. I use single shot focus, so it focuses once, it doesn't start tracking. I use autofocus. I use the live view on the back of the camera. I pick my focus point. I zoom in at 5 times or 10 times magnification. Ensure I've got sharp focus, then I take the shot. There's one piece left in the jigsaw, and that's where to focus in the landscape. What's important? What is it you want to show the viewer? We're going to cover that in an upcoming video. So to make sure you don't miss it, you need to subscribe, tick the bell icon so you get the notification, and I'll see you soon back on the channel. Popular locations sometimes need a different approach. Finding interesting textures and shapes is a way of getting different photographs. I had to be careful and pick my focusing spot to make sure those textures are crisp. I'm pleased with the result. It won't make the portfolio, but I can go back and do better.
I hope you're enjoying the video. Maybe you would like to carry on, so try these suggestions next. I want to share more knowledge, more skills, more passion and stories about photography with you. So think about subscribing. If you do, ring the bell. It will make your subscription count. If you have time, comment. I will see you on the next video. So get out there and enjoy your photography.